Hey, Margie here. Today we're going to focus on testing for some of the root causes of osteoporosis. And our guest is someone who does this on a regular basis with his patients. So today we're lucky to have Dr. Dan Cardellichio with us. And Dr. Dan is a doctor of chiropractic and clinical nutritionist. He received his Master of Science degree from the University of Bridgeport, where he serves as an adjunct professor teaching at the graduate level. He teaches evidence-based nutrition and pathophysiology of disease. Dr. Cardellichio is a leader in the field of metabolic and functional nutrition. He understands the importance of personalized precision nutrition using food sensitivity testing, vitamin and mineral analysis, and weight loss to optimize health. And in today's talk, we delve into his 3 favorite tests that he uses with his patients with osteoporosis to really find out some of the root causes. So this is filled with lots of great information, so stay tuned. Welcome, Dr. Dan. I'm so happy to have you. I had the best time on your podcast. So I'm excited to have your energy on the podcast today. Thanks so much for joining us.
You know what? It was a great podcast that we had. And I am privileged, it's an honor and privilege to come onto your podcast and talk to all of your listeners so we can motivate, we can educate, and we inspire. It's interesting for me, though, because usually I'm doing the interviewing as opposed to being the interviewee. So I'm excited about this. This is going to be great.
Well, the reason I wanted to have you on is because in your practice, you utilize a lot of testing that other people aren't even aware exists, and a lot of similar testing that I'm a big believer in. And I thought it would be great for you to really educate the listeners, because sometimes this can make a difference. We always talk about the root causes and how it's so critical to not just treat osteoporosis with a medication, but to really figure out what is causing this bone loss. And a lot of the testing you do will get those answers. So I thought this would be really, I'm really excited because you do this on a regular basis and you've seen results. And that's, I think, it's one thing to talk about it, but another thing when you're practicing, and this is just part of what you do every single day. So yay.
Yes. You know what? We have a mantra in the office. If you're not testing, you're guessing. So wherever I am in the office in New Jersey, we always test because that's the game changer, because you could get really specific on what type of, nutritional and dietary interventions you want. So it's really important to test.
Right. So let's start with nutritional deficiencies, because the micronutrient deficiencies, because I see this on a regular basis. And we have had people talk about this on the podcast, but I want to know your experience, because it's nice to say, yes, take a multivitamin or make sure you get your magnesium, K2. But sometimes I know when I personally had my micronutrient test, I was really surprised. Some things were borderline and low, like CoQ10, things that really can affect your bones, and I had no idea. So what testing do you like to do, and what do you typically see?
So let's talk about 3 different tests. I think we can start off with the we could start off with the micronutrient testing, which is very important. We can then go into wheat tumor, leaky gut, and then we can get into the food intolerance test. Now, I see different patterns that are with osteoporotic patients. And what happens is when they come in to see me, one of my go-to tests is the vitamin and mineral panel. And this is important because, listen, Margie, people are taking vitamins all the time right now, right? I mean, I'm sure you have your patients coming in, they're just, it's like they go to the vitamin store and the one who takes the most vitamins is the winner. So if you really want to hone down on what type of specific vitamins and minerals that you are deficient in, doing the vitamin and mineral panel is extremely important. And there's definitely a pattern that I've seen. And one of the patterns is deficiency in vitamin D. Now, we hear about vitamin D all the time. Vitamin D is actually a hormone. It's important for, mental health, brain health, muscle health, including bone health. And what we've seen are those that have a vitamin C deficiency, that have lowered levels of vitamin D, they're osteoporotic. And there are many different reasons why they can have this deficiencies in vitamin D. Could be your diet, could be lack of exercise, weight-bearing exercises, right? Could be lack of getting outside in the sunshine. We do live in New Jersey, and just about half the year, we're living in darkness, if you will, in the winter time. But now it's nice outside. So vitamin D is extremely important, and vitamin D needs to be checked every single time, because without levels of vitamin D that are appropriate, we find out that the bones, if you will, for lack of a better term, are brittle, right? And we find out that they're osteoporotic, those types of patients. Another, you had mentioned CoQ10, which is extremely important. In addition to it's energy producing. Your bones need energy to grow. So having low CoQ10 is extremely important. Additionally, magnesium. We're finding out that those individuals that have low magnesium are osteoporotic. So what we like to do is this vitamin and mineral panel. And then from there, we can target those different types of supplements, either diet, all right? Because diet's always number one. Supplements are always number two, because you can't out-supplement a bad diet. So nutritionally, we always take a look at their diets, and we want to make sure that they're eating appropriately. And then we supplement, especially vitamin D. Everybody seems to have very low vitamin Ds, critically low vitamin Ds, during this time. We're coming out of this pandemic. People have been out, people have been inside, they haven't been outside, and it becomes important for overall health.
It's so true, because when you look at the guidelines, the good news is that most physicians, most doctors I see most people are ordering vitamin D levels, and you can get that on the regular panel. So I think most people, because if you look at like the RDA, it's very low, and that will not be enough. That, people need that 25 hydroxy vitamin D level. And I think that's so important. And I do think most doctors are looking at that, because I think we realize that. So I think that's in good shape. I think the other micronutrients are not. Very few people are really evaluating the way they should, the way they can, the way they have an opportunity, because you're right. People are eating a really good diet. So I see this all the time. Someone's eating a good diet, but they don't know what they're missing. And that's the problem. As you said, you don't want to test, test, not guess. So,
right.
Yeah.
It's extremely important. Now, we are also going to talk a little bit about calcium, because we always hear that calcium is important. Calcium with vitamin D taken together, extremely important. Increases absorption of both of them, and that's important for bone health. Copper is also important for bone health. So those 5 are really important, and that's what I'm looking for in an osteoporotic patient, to make sure that I can make those recommendations dietarily and make those recommendations when it comes to, different types of supplements. And like we said, you don't have to go to the store and buy every single supplement that's out there, because this is doing this is supposed to do this. Get that vitamin and mineral panel. It's extremely important to do. And it's a game changer. And what we find out clinically, patients are getting better. And
there's certain ones that you would recommend?
Certain different types of companies that I recommend. Sure. So for me, I love all the companies. I love all the nutraceutical companies. I use them all. I like Metagenics, which is
I'm talking about
company.
I'm talking about not for the supplements. I'm talking about for the panel to get the
panel. What company?
Yeah.
What we do is we use a company called Vibrant America in our office, and I know that you use that too. And Vibrant America is a leader right now when it comes to different functional lab tests to help us get to the root cause of what's going on. So I find that to be extremely important. So Vibrant America is a really good lab. And what I like about them is that they can help out with the panels, and they have bundles where you can get this, and this in a bundle, and the patient can afford it legally. And it's great It's great. And I love that. And we can help out a lot of patients when it comes to this.
And how often, so someone comes in, they see that they have these micronutrient deficiencies, then they either add the foods or add the supplements. And then how often do you retest?
Great question. And I had a patient ask me that last week, a new patient. Doc, are we going to retest this? And I said, yes, anywhere between 6 to 12 months after we start the program. It depends upon how low those levels are. For example, the vitamin D, the magnesium, the CoQ10. We may then at that point supplement you, right? And then we may not do it for 10, 11, or 12 months because we need to really saturate those red blood cells and move that dial, if you will, when it comes to those micronutrients that are deficient. If they are, barely deficient and they're within normal, barely deficient, take a look at it in about 6 months so that we can make sure, and this is important because you have to retest. And if you don't retest, you don't know, right? You don't know, right? It's kind of like you and I in our musculoskeletal practices, right? It's like, all right, I did a straight leg test. It was positive, 35 degrees on the right. I got sciatica. Okay, we did some rehab. We raised the leg and now, it's 90 degrees. So we know we did a good job. So it's a game changer where you have to retest to make sure to be where you are. Because if you're taking too much vitamin D, maybe we have to cut it down. If you're satisfied, if there's sufficient levels, I don't like to keep people forever on a certain amount of supplements either. Once the red blood cells are saturated, we can then perhaps move into a multivitamin, a nice good multivitamin. Maybe I continue on with the vitamin D because it's always habitually low. So I like to move on to the multivitamin because what I've seen is there's about 5 or 6 when it comes to osteoporosis. So I don't want them to take 5 or 6. I want them to, have sufficient levels over a period of time. Then we can go into a multivitamin, and that's much better in my opinion.
I have a question. What I see a lot are deficiencies in the B vitamins. Do you see that as well? I see that in so many of my patients.
Across the board, B vitamins. Do you know why? Because they're not eating appropriately. They're just not eating appropriately. And B vitamins are extremely important for many different types of health processes, including osteoporosis. We're in a society where we like to eat a lot of foods, fast foods, right? They're nutritionally deficient. They're not nutritionally dense. So we're not getting appropriate amount of vitamins and minerals, B vitamins, vitamin D, whatever that is. And we're eating foods that are high in omega-6 fatty acids, those ultra processed foods. They lack vitamins and minerals. But you know what? They're palatable, they're affordable, and they're readily available. So they're all over the place. And so it's easy for individuals to purchase those. For my osteoporotic patients, for all patients, I'd like to make those positive lifestyle changes so that they're eating better. We're getting to the root cause, right, March? We're getting to that.
Absolutely. I mean, you and I are on the same page with this. No questions.
We're getting to the root cause, and getting to the root cause, we're able to make those changes, those positive lifestyle changes, because I don't know, I used to eat a lot of that stuff and drink a lot of sugary sodas. That didn't work out too well for me at all.
It's so amazing to me still how, why it's not number one thing, because everything changes when you make the lifestyle changes and even minor tweaks. It's just so.
It's mindset. And we're bombarded every day with different types of messages that we hear, right? We just get bombarded with so many different types of, messages that, eat this or eat this, and, all the catchy phrases that you hear, and it's just easy to do. You're driving down, right? Where I am in Monmouth County, you're on Route 9. There's a million fast food places. Oh, I saw the commercial, so I got to get that extra big, right? I got to get that extra big burger. Doesn't have any nutritional value.
Okay.
Or minimal.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. So, all right. So we get I'm sorry, is there anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. All right. So we want to know micronutrients because that can have a major, major effect. And this isn't typically looked at. I would say most times people are not getting the test. So let's go to the second one that you mentioned, because I see this a lot. The wheat. Let's talk about the wheat Zoomer.
Wheat Zoomer test is one of my favorite tests. It tells me if there's leaky gut. It tells me if there's an intestinal permeability that's going on. And all the research right now is going towards that leaky gut. That is a root cause. We're finding out that gut bugs that we have, there's good ones, there's bad ones. If there's more bad ones than there is good ones, we're finding out that there's a lot of problems, a lot of health conditions that could come about. Osteoporosis being one of those. And so what happens is there are many different causes, right? Gluten is, everybody hears gluten. It's the proteins in gluten. It's gliadin, it's glutenein. It causes an inflammatory reaction in your stomach. Could be the foods that we're eating, and we'll get into that next. Could be stress. Could be medications that are going on, toxins that we're being exposed to, because we're living in an ever toxic environment at this point. So if you're drinking water, are you drinking it in plastic, or do you have a cup like mine? You know, estrogen dominance. Are you purchasing foods, fruits and vegetables that have pesticides, insecticides on them, or herbicides on them? This all leads to a leaky gut. And it's exactly what it sounds like, Margie. It's like, here's your gut lining and there's inflammation, and the linings start to separate. And if you have that slice of pizza with pepperoni, it's not that the pepperoni is going into your bloodstream in full, but large proteins are going in that are not being digested, causing an inflammatory reaction. And this is a game changer in addition to, because it helps me with what probiotics, with certain proteins like glutamine that can help out. So leaky gut is a real condition that really can get to the root cause of a lot of different problems today.
Well, interesting. Since you do all this testing and you see a fair amount of osteoporosis patients, what have you seen in terms of people being positive? Have you seen a big correlation with people testing positive in the leaky gut?
Absolutely. All my osteoporotic patients have a leaky gut. They have intestinal permeability, and they have that sensitivity to wheat, okay? They have that sensitivity to the gliadin and the glutenein. So we have to take out all of the wheat. And there's so many different types of wheats that are out there that people don't even know that they're eating. Even non-wheat can create problems, like a couscous type of a situation. So this test looks at that. And so what we need to do is we're talking about it before, a little bit of an elimination diet where we're taking out wheat. Dr. Dan, does that mean I'm not supposed to drink beer? It's the summer, Jersey Shore. I have my beers. My friends are over. Sure, wheat, barley, malt, all of that is in there. So it's important to take out that to start healing the gut. It's like it's inflamed. We got to cool it down. And all of that stuff that's creating that hotness in there needs to be taken out. And so categorically across every one of my patients that have osteoporosis has this leaky gut type of a situation. So from there, what we can do is we can find out what it is, what type of probiotics. There's many different types of probiotics. So, I like to use one that can help out healing the gut when you have osteoporosis. There's many different types of names, with the good bacteria. I'm not going to bore everybody with that because I get bored, right? When you're talking about that. And there's a couple of products, nutrition shakes that have glutamine in it that helps calm down that fire in there. And it has a nice array of vitamins and minerals that really helps out significantly.
It's just interesting, since I said you do tests and I do some testing, but a lot of people just they come to me and they're already gluten-free. And I have seen, though, I just can't even get over it, how many people where the bone density, absolutely got better once they were gluten-free, as well as their arthritis cleared up. I mean, I see this a lot. So I think it is a huge culprit. And I do think that when people, I think it's something, it's not traditionally the first thing people go to, that maybe there's a food sensitivity problem. But that's interesting that you're seeing it on everyone. That's because that's
everybody
incredible.
that comes in with osteoporosis across the line has a leaky gut, has this intestinal permeability. And you just said something that's also, extremely important, because a lot of people are gluten-free. They're coming in, they're gluten-free. But you know what? You and I are like the last 25%, because even though they're gluten-free, they may not know some of the products that they're eating contain some gluten in there. So I'm finding out, even if a patient comes in and they're saying that they're gluten-free, there's still a positive wheat tumor test. So we delve into it and we see where that gluten is. We're like those detectives, right? We got to see where that gluten is, what they could be eating, because, you don't know what you don't know. And when that happens, we need to be a detective and find out, what that is. And so we can take away, the remaining gluten, grains, whatever it is, and put in better sources of carbohydrates based on a food tolerance test. So that's extremely important.
It's so, I mean, I live with, my husband almost died because of gluten. So I'm one who, and he's been on the podcast because his story was so incredible. But in terms of gluten, you really, if you can't have any, it's not like, oh, I'll go mostly not. It's 100%.
100%.
Yeah, it's different than some other things like sugar, where we're going to eliminate most of the sugar. That could do the trick. But with gluten, every little bit, just like you said, from whatever source, can make a difference. So it's not like you can sort of go gluten-free. You just can't.
Either you're going gluten-free or you're not going gluten-free.
Yeah, and it's so, you're absolutely right. I had Tom O'Brien, Dr. Tom O'Brien on the podcast, one of the gurus, one of the people that started this whole movement. And he was saying how there was one of the researchers at Columbia. I mean, they actually did studies showing that, people it was gluten. The worst ones were gluten-free pasta and gluten-free bread that we still had gluten in it. I think it was like a 50%. And those were the ones that the pizza and the bread that my husband would have issues with. He would have this gluten-free pizza and he would get sick. So you're absolutely right. It's a bigger deal, but that's just so fascinating that all of that's shocking to me that everybody, wow.
Yeah, I'm finding it across the board. And I want to pick up a little bit about what you were saying, especially for the listeners, because, if you purchase something that says gluten-free, may not necessarily be accurate, if you will. And so you have to be careful, because if you're not 100% gluten-free, you can really create some problems, when it comes to your health. So be careful. Even though it says gluten-free. Oh, look, I bought gluten-free crackers. Crackers have gluten in them, and that's important.
The other thing is there's so much junk gluten-free food. So you think there's no reason that because it has the label gluten-free, it's making it healthy. It's not. There's a lot of completely junk gluten-free as well. So if you're eating whole foods and just eliminating those food groups, in terms of I think we're doing a good job. And the sad thing to me, the really sad thing is now that on just wheat in general, not organic, but that they're spraying that with glyphosate just so it harvests quicker. I mean, that's just so horrible.
It's horrible the way that happens. And that goes back what we were saying before. You got all of these sprays, insecticides, herbicides, whatever it is that they're putting on, it increases the shelf life. And they can harvest faster, quicker, more, whatever that is. But the health consequences of what's coming on with this is not appropriate. And we're seeing that more and more every single day. And going gluten-free is not easy because it tastes good. Like we said, it's palatable, and it's tough. Listen, I had a scare a little over a year ago. I had a physical. And so, my partner's a primary care. She drew the blood and my platelets were just about non-existent. So she calls me up and she goes, "You have leukemia, I think." I'm like, no, there's no leukemia, right? So I'm like driving to work, I'm going up to the office and I'm sweating, and I'm like, no, I don't have leukemia. So we got there and we took a look at the blood work, and I said, all right, let's take a look at it. Let's see if I have an autoimmune type of a condition. Let's do the leaky gut. Let's do this. Let's do that. And, I have thrombocytopenia, which is an autoimmune condition. And boy, did I light up the wheat tumor test, March. And I cannot eat any gluten. If I don't eat gluten, my platelets go up to be normal. If I eat gluten, they're just going down. So,
wow, that's so interesting. And I think, I've discussed this on the podcast so much, but the thing is that it could affect your bones. This is what's so fascinating when people do eliminate the gluten, and all of a sudden, their arthritis is gone. So many different things. Look, for you, it was your platelets. My husband had a cough, and he was losing weight. it was a horrible sweating. It was a horrible situation, but everybody reacts differently to the inflammation.
Correct. And so that's what it is. There's a cardiovascular issue, weight loss resistance, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, autoimmunity. There's many different types of conditions that come out of this gluten causing this intestinal permeability. And so it's a little scary, but then that's why we're here, to help people out and to make sure that they're eating appropriately.
But let's talk about the good news, though. The good news is that once you find out, there is so much that can be done. And that, to me, is so, and I guess that's the upsetting thing to me with the osteoporosis. This isn't looked at. So someone may just go on medication, but yet they have the leaky gut, they have an issue with gluten, they have inflammation not looked at. And so other areas are getting worse still. And I just think a lot of times they're missing the boat. And that's why I'm so passionate about getting people on who do this to share so that people are enlightened to how important this is. Because isn't it nice that there's something, it's not that hard. It's interesting. I've been gluten-free. I don't absolutely have to be, but I've been gluten-free since my husband. Plus, I don't think it's just not healthy, quite honestly, for many years. And when you get used to that type of eating, there's so many, to me, it's just not really an issue in terms of.
Listen, you can make recipes. We give patients recipes, menus that are nutritious and delicious, and you don't have to have the gluten.
Right. Plus, you feel so good. You feel so good. So okay. So do we want to talk any more on the wheat tumor or the intestinal permeability? But the good news, tell us what you've seen in your practice, how people get better from this. That's the good news.
Listen, you know what? A good probiotic, vitamin D, and certain products that have glutamine in them, a nutrition shake. Really, there's a 4 to 6 month protocol that we're using in the office. That's what the literature, that's what the research is indicating. 4 to 6 months, and you heal your gut, and you continue on with the program and not falling and not eating the gluten anymore. And really, this is something that is really so beneficial to patients. And the silver lining, like you said, the good news is you can get a situation like this and you can make it better so that you are better, you're functioning better, your physiology, your metabolism, your biochemistry, and it really is great. That's why I love doing this every day.
That's so great. Okay, so we've hit those 2 tests. So you said there's a third test that you really utilize a lot that gives you really great information. Do you want to share that?
It's another test from Vibrant America. It's called the food intolerance test. It's not a food allergy test, right? It's not a food allergy test. An allergic reaction is like, I eat something and hives come out or my throat starts to close. No, it's not that type of. It's a different, I'm going to use a big word, immunoglobulin that we're looking at. And so it causes this low-grade inflammation. I love this test. This is my favorite test because this is a test that tells me what you should be eating and what you should be avoiding. It tests 180 different types of foods: meat, beef, chicken, turkey, lamb, salmon, herring, trout, mackerel, all the vegetables. You can come into me and you can say, oh, Dr. Dan, you know what? I'm eating a Mediterranean diet, which is arguably one of the better diets that are out there, right? But I'm still not, I don't know, I changed and I'm eating this Mediterranean diet. I think I'm getting better. I lost a couple of pounds, but I'm still, my joints are still painful. I feel a little bit better, but not 100% better. This gets really specific as to what you should be eating and what you should be avoiding. This in combination, finding out what you're having these food intolerances to. And I've had vegans come in and they would eat a certain way. And I would say, uh-oh, you can't, the veggies that you're eating, we have to change them, but I've been eating like this for such a long time. Well, you're here for a particular reason. Let's get you better. And so what we need to do is we take those foods out that's causing the inflammation. Again, that inflammation can cause that leaky gut type of a situation that can create what we've been discussing, such as osteoporosis. So eating foods can create this. And then we put together this elimination diet. Well, we'll take out certain foods and we'll replace them with different foods that are better for you. This is the game changers. This is the epigenetics. This is where the specificity comes in finding the root cause of different types of conditions. This is what I love. And this is a great situation to do this particular test, because this in combination with like a metabolic reset or a metabolic detox, boy, within that first month, you know what patients say to me? I haven't felt this good after a month. I've lost 12 pounds. I've lost 10 pounds, whatever that is. And I haven't felt this good. What's next? I want to go on to this leaky gut protocol now. I want to see what's next for me. So what we do is we take a look at the different proteins, carbohydrates, and fats in this food sensitivity test. And we make sure that we replace them with what you should be eating, which is magnificent and really helps out significantly.
And what have you found to be the biggest culprits? Have you found certain patterns of foods that...
Here's the interesting thing. I have not found any patterns at all, because everybody is different genetically. Everybody has different genetics. So it could be in this particular individual, it could be meat. In this one, it could be chicken, it could be turkey, it could be veal, it could be bison. I'm eating a lot of veggies. I'm eating fruits, blueberries. It could be blueberries. I haven't found a pattern. I've been looking for a pattern for any condition, but what I found is there's no pattern, because everybody is so different when it comes to this. And what happens, just in my case, I was eating a Mediterranean diet that was based on food sensitivity testing 10 years ago. Body changed. A lot of that component of the Mediterranean diet I had to change. So salmon, I love salmon, right? Great source of omega-3 fatty acids. Salmon's off the list now, but I'm eating a little bit more beef, grass-fed beef, instead of the grain-fed beef, because grain-fed beef can create inflammation. Some grass-fed beef, and I love beef anyway, so it's all good. So last night I had some grass-fed filet mignon, so it was good. My wife cooked it up nice last night.
So I now have another question. So someone's leaky gut gets better, because sometimes there are people who are so inflamed and they're allergic to everything, but yet when they heal, then it becomes less and less. So how often do you repeat, and do you see that things change over time, where they may have been sensitive to something down the road, then they're not?
Yes, that's another great question. With the wheat tumor test, I wouldn't do that until about a year or a little bit over a year, because it could take 4 to 6 months, but I want to make sure. So I test that in about a year. An overwhelming majority of patients come back and they have no intestinal permeability. They have no leaky gut. They're functioning at a higher level, and they're better. So osteoporosis is better. Whatever it is they're coming within is just so much better, and that's what makes it exciting for you and I.
Right. But in terms of the other tests, in terms of the food sensitivity, have you seen as people, because I know with wheat, in gluten, usually a lot of times people are just gluten-free the rest of their life because they have the antibodies and it will still trigger it. But with some of the other sensitivities, do you find that as their leaky gut, as condition improves, that they may not, they may be sensitive to 30 things and now it's only 10? Or have you seen that with your testing?
So we wouldn't do the food sensitivity test for 5 to 7 years.
Oh, okay, that's my question. Okay.
So we wouldn't do that for 5 to 7 years. However, when we do this elimination diet, we'll take out salmon or beef. In 3 or 4 months, we'll say, you know what? It's time to add something in. I'll add in one food, right? One particular food that they've had an issue with. I want to see how you feel when that's done. So that's just that's just clinical at that point. So I want to see how you feel. So, okay, I have a piece of salmon, and you know what? I felt tired. I felt fatigued. I had some brain fog. I felt as if I was underwater, if you will. I slept a little bit more. For clinically, that's what I see. You're not ready at that point. You're not ready at that point to add that food back in. So now what we need to do is go back to the original plan, or add in a different type of protein, carb, healthy fat type of a source, so that you can get that into your system to help heal the gut. Because when you're eating foods that are good for your metabolism and your biochemistry, that does help heal the leaky gut, in addition to a probiotic, in addition to the nutrition shake that has glutamine in it, in addition to taking your vitamin D. So we won't do that test, but we're going to look for very specific symptoms that an individual feels. I have one patient that I'm thinking of, simply chicken. She loved chicken. She had this food intolerance to chicken. Went to Disney in Florida with her family, and she was confronted with a hamburger or a chicken sandwich at some fast food restaurant that they went to go eat. They're with their kids, and I wish she called me, because she was with me for 8 months and she was really doing well. And she had the chicken sandwich thinking that in her mind, chicken is better than the hamburger, right? Because that's what we're taught. But the hamburger was probably better for her. She had the chicken for 3 days. She was out. And she wasn't able to, she was fatigued, tired. She couldn't go to she couldn't go to the parks with her kids. And for those of you who have been to the park with your kids, it's okay if you don't go.
Oh, it's fun.
It's really hot, and boy, no,
my kids are all grown, but we used to go every single year when they were, and it was a lot. It was great. It was really fun. But you do forget how. I remember at one point, my 3 children are quite close in age, and so my 2 sons are 17 months apart. So they were in one stroller. Then I had the baby in another. People are like, and then when you go onto those, it'd be like little train things, people are like feeling sorry for us. Like, are these people crazy?
and I love in the center, they had the food fountain. No, they had the drink fountain, and it was all soda, and so you were hot, you were drinking the soda, and then you were more thirsty, and you were hungry, and you got something to eat. And it was a great way to gain a couple of pounds over your vacation.
So this is great. These tests are so wonderful. Is there anything else before we end that in terms of the testing that you wanted to share that you found are really important that people should be aware of?
When it comes to osteoporosis, go see a practitioner that's well-versed in this. All right, in the food sensitivity testing, the wheat zoomer, the vitamin and mineral analysis, right? Make sure you exercise, right? Because that's very important. I'm a chiropractor also, and you're a physical therapist, and we're always recommending exercise, whether they're osteoporotic or whatever it is, because exercise is extremely important. Weight-bearing exercises, get in some cardio, get in some, if you're lifting weights, you don't have to be eternally impressive, right? You don't have to bench press 450 pounds. You can just work out lightly, and you can get in a nice workout. You want to build some of that muscle tissue. So do those resistance. Also, the last thing I want to leave everybody with is make sure you sleep enough. Sleep is extremely important.
Okay. I mean, we could talk for hours and hours, but you're offering something really generous to the community. So yes. Do you want to, and this is, yes. That was so nice when we were discussing right before the interview, you mentioned that you were happy. Why don't you tell everybody? Because it was very.
So, you know what? I have a practice I have 3 practices in New Jersey. I have one in Essex County, I got one in Union County. I have actually 4, one in Middlesex County, one in Monmouth County. And, you can go on to any of the social media, Dan Cardellichio, DCMS on Instagram and on Facebook, and you'll see all the offices and their phone numbers. If you want, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a discovery call, half an hour to 60 minutes. I'll spend the time with you, all right? And we'll go over your condition. And what I'll do is I'll make sure if I can help you, I'll let you know. If not, I'll make some recommendations for other people. But you can sit with me. You can bring your blood work. You can bring whatever it is that you have. Let's take a look at it. Let's see if we can make you better. Okay, that's what we're here for. And that's what my passion is. Let's make you better. Let's start you on that process to getting you better.
And so, because so many people, you and I live in New Jersey, but a lot of people. So this works virtually as well, you're saying? I
do telehealth. I can do in person. I can do telehealth. So, if you're interested, again, you can send me a message on Messenger via Facebook. You can.
All right. So we'll have your links. What's the best way then? What would you say?
The best way is suburbanwellnessgroup.com. That is the main office, and you can go to Suburban Wellness Group. Our phone number is 973-483-2277, and we can guide you to the different offices that we have in New Jersey. We can do telehealth, and we can take care of you from there. Excited to have anybody come in and help them out.
Oh, well, thank you. And the information, I think, is really great because, as you said, if you can, test, not guess. I think regardless, some of the concepts you brought out, that just to reinforce to people that this is an issue. I mean, we've talked about this on the podcast, but how important leaky gut is and how this really relates to osteoporosis, and just something we need to look at. And I think everything. I think all the testing that you talked about, in terms of
it's
micronutrient deficiency, all of these root causes that a lot of times are not looked at. So
sure. 100%.
So I can't thank you enough. This has been so helpful.
Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun being on the other end. So
yeah, it's always a pleasure. So we'll keep in touch since I do live in New Jersey.
Absolutely. You know what? I'll have you back on my podcast in a bit. Maybe I'll come back on your podcast in a bit if everybody likes it, and we'll discuss.
Yeah, tell everyone the name of your podcast too, so they can.
The podcast is Destination Health, powered by Suburban Wellness Group. You go to YouTube and you put in Suburban Wellness Group, and you'll see me, you'll see Margie on my podcast, and a lot of other people that we know. And we're all, like I said, we're trying to motivate, educate, and inspire. That's what we do.
Well, you do a good job of it. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for listening today.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Dr. Dan and now have a better understanding of some of the testing available to look at some of the root causes of osteoporosis. I'll put in the show notes the names of the 3 tests that Dr. Dan talked about, as well as Dr. Dan's information, so that you can take advantage of his very generous complimentary discovery call that he offered everybody. So bye for now, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.